Welcome, guys. We're going to be covering off a market update. We're going to look at Bitcoin and a whole heap of altcoins. I had a couple of guys hit me up and ask for a new video update on what my thoughts are on everything that is going on. So we're going to get stuck into all of that. So thanks a lot for joining us today. We're going to have a quick look at a few altcoins first, shake it up a little bit, and then we'll look at BTC in a second. So one that I do like the look of at the moment is INJ. Obviously had a really strong run, quite a large consolidation through here, which pretty much went from April, mid-April all the way to November. And then, very strong breakout, this last push through here, 160%. Let's just throw a fib on this. And, it's still holding up fairly high, the 382 fib retracement. And it's had quite a nice 26% retrace. So a couple of the really top altcoins, INJ, Link, I'm pretty sure as well. We'll have a look at that in a second. But Solana definitely had about a 25% pullback. When you're in a really strong uptrend, sometimes that's all that you get, right? So a couple of these I was actually bidding yesterday when we had that pullback. I actually bought some more Solana and got in pretty low, close to the bottom. Nailed the bottom on Theta, but I also messed up a couple of other trades, which I'll show you guys as well, because, sometimes, you do the right things and you reduce when the market doesn't look very good, you reduce risk. And the market just pumps anyway. But I'll show you the mistake that I made there. It wasn't really a mistake because I'd still do it again next time. I believe it was the right decision. Sometimes in the markets, though, you just get unlucky, right? But I'll show you that as well, because it's a good example of understanding and then also trading psychology as well, not to beat yourself up over something like that. This has been a really nice run up and decent pullback, right? And, obviously went from making higher highs, higher lows. And now we're in a very clear consolidation pattern. Now, this could be some type of distribution for sure, but to me, definitely looks a little bit more like a reaccumulation pattern, right? What I don't want to see is trading below this new low here, which is basically being put on at $14.13. So let's just say $14. We don't want to see price trading underneath there. I wouldn't mind, actually, because we just put in a pretty decent pin bar after quite a strong rally yesterday and overnight. The morning candle before daily close. Pretty decent pin bar through there, and that could either lead to a deeper pullback, but I would want to see this order block. This is just a daily order block. I'll show it to you here on the daily time frame. So basically, it was the last red candle, pullback candle, before the last push into the flag. And you will notice that price tends to come back to that area and bounce off it multiple times when the market is strong and bullish. And that usually is the order block or the support level that you start to see a lot of bidding come out of. And, that sets the bottom of the flag pattern, right? So we could see something like this happen. It pulls all the way back into this order block again and then rallies out of there. The main thing I'm watching for, though, is a break of this downtrend channel through here, which sort of makes, this sort of falling wedge aspect to it. It's more of like a downwards channel, to be honest. But yeah, you could call it a falling wedge if you want to. The thing that matters, though, is if this downtrend through here breaks, and I like to connect the tops of the main candles like this. But you could also draw this to the wicks if you wanted to as well and have it up here. It's just that's going to get you into the trade a lot later. So I prefer to be trying to get in a little bit earlier on the candle close. The trend line from the candle closes, these two here. And if we get a close above that, that would be telling me that, we're most likely going to get a breakout and this to push at least back to, $18, right? So yeah, the entry for me would be down here, just above the green box, like a pin bar or something like that. Stop loss would be below the local low. And then I'd be looking for, for $18, probably around in between here and 19, right? That's about a 3.3 up to 4 risk to reward ratio. So it's actually quite a nice trade, right? And so what I'll basically be looking for is this to break out of that and then continue to push. And this easily could end up going up to $22 or even 26, right? Just based on the Fibonacci targets. But yeah, let's see if that ends up playing out. And obviously it's going to need Bitcoin to push up higher as well and probably run to 40K plus for that to be able to get out like that. Right, Solana as well, looking very similar. It's just holding, basically the range line of this flag pattern. Saw this sort of come down into this area. We've got the similar type setup. This is just a 1 hour order block through here, and saw it bouncing off here, saw it bouncing off here. So I actually bought through here on Solana. This is a lot more of a sideways sort of flag angle here at the moment. And, obviously there's a lot of people playing that head and shoulders type setup as well on this, right? So there's definitely going to be a lot of liquidity above this area here. So if it can find a way to flag out and then push into that, it could end up pushing and taking out the new highs. If it can get over 68, I'm looking for it to run all the way up to this order block up here at $80. And then, we'll see what happens from there. The bearish argument here is that, yes, this is playing as a head and shoulders pattern, and it's going to eventually roll over and take out these lows. If it does take out the lows here at 51, there is potential that it gets saved and finds a bid at like 47. But yeah, if that ends up playing out quite nasty, it could come back all the way to 38 and chop around sideways for a little bit longer and then push. And that would obviously coincide with a major Bitcoin, or not maybe a major, but a larger Bitcoin pullback. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm expecting things to continue to push to the upside until proven otherwise. But this easily could just continue to range out for like the next month or so before it gets the next move up. So there's something to think about as well. Like we went from a very ranging, drawn out sort of price action to a really big push. This ended up being what? Well, excuse me. This ended up being a 200% rally, right? So yeah, that's going to take some time to digest. People are going to take profit, reaccumulation, and then go again. This easily could do something like this and then come back down, sweep the low here, and then push back up again and then go. So we could end up seeing something like that, which in that case, I will be looking to buy more when we reclaim after putting in the spring. Okay, let's have a look at Link. Kind of interesting as well, the potential head and shoulders pattern here brewing at the moment. So a break of this level at 1530 could get really interesting, and that easily could end up pushing us up to the next level at 19. So that's going to be one to watch for sure. Got my eyes on that. So let's have a look at Rose. Nice flag as well. With these flags, it's got to be careful that it doesn't end up playing as a distribution. So what usually happens if you get a distribution, maybe it comes down and sweeps this, goes up like this, sweeps the high and then comes back in below the high, right? And it'll end up looking something like that if it's distribution. Or, it could happen a lot faster and go like this. Right? So that's what we're going to watch out for. We don't want to see it lose. Like there's a lot of lows in here, and there's probably going to be a lot of stop losses underneath there, and those could end up getting hunted if we do get down back towards the bottom of the range. But yeah, we just don't want to see closing on Rose under 0.62, right? Because that opens up to a much deeper pullback, and maybe like a 6182 pullback or something like that, which would take a lot longer for it to recover and start to pushing, rallying quite strongly again. And if that happens, I think, a lot of altcoins across the board are going to be pulling back as well, right? So there's definitely an interesting level here at 0.618 at the 0.54. Right, which would be a retest of here. So let's see, because these can easily continue to just trade sideways within this range like this, right? But that does look like a pretty tight consolidation, like it's getting ready to put in a sign of strength and then move forwards, continue moving higher. But yeah, this can easily just end up coming all the way back to the lows for another sweep in and then run again after the halving as well, right? You cannot rule that out, which is why I sort of messed up the Illuvium trade yesterday a little bit. Originally, I was like, oh, yes, this is broken out. It's getting ready to push and catch up to some of the other top moving coins. But yeah, it ended up selling off quite aggressively. So I actually added when we got the close above here. And then unfortunately, I got the rejection the next day. And usually if I add to a position or enter a new position and then I get an instant rejection, I usually just close a trade. Because obviously I got the timing wrong, right? And this is like, okay, that's a loss. Even if it hasn't hit my stop loss, that's a loss. I've obviously messed that up. Like, you catch a wick or something like that, trying to take a breakout trade. Okay, I made a mistake there. I'll just cut this loss and move forward rather than like trying to keep it open, being under like all this, emotional stress and, I did the wrong thing. How can I be such an idiot? Now I'm underwater, not closing trade. Just bang, cut it real quick, right? Okay, obviously I was wrong with the timing, so I cut it. I wasn't expecting this to be an 18% candle the next day. SEI did something similar as well. This was actually really annoying, this one, because you can see the result. But basically, I bought in here during this candle and then thought we'd pumped and broken out, and that was looking great. And then obviously we had the pullback, which ended up being a 22% pullback, and then so closed down here at a small loss. And then, the next day we ended up breaking out on a really strong rally. And, now it's up 40 odd % from where I entered, which is extremely annoying. But when you look at the chart like this, it's hard, and, you'd only just entered into the trade in that flag. It's hard to be like, I should have held on to that, because when you look at a chart and it's given really strong rejection like that with a swing failure pattern, and the rest of the market, like Bitcoin was crashing as well. Everything was looking pretty ugly. It's hard to say that I wouldn't sell that again. And I actually believe that the right decision was to sell that and get out of that position. If I had been in from down here, maybe we would have taken 50% off or left some in. But yeah, that's basically a sell every single time. And sometimes you just get unlucky, right? And the market just ends up pumping the next day, next candle, and absolutely launching, right? So because you have a candle like that, and then the next candle can be down here, or come all the way back down to the lows down through here, which so if you had sold at this level up here and then being able to re-enter, it's 21% that you saved. So yeah, that was an interesting one. Basically, any coins that just entered into like new positions, I just cut those straight away. And then, coins that had pulled back like Solana and Link, I just added to those because I'm like, these are such quality coins anyway. Even if the market does continue to pull back further, I know that the quality is going to, recover and push again anyway. So I'm happy to buy into that. And so for me, it was more about just a rotation of capital from, being in more of like assets that I see as more higher risk and lower quality into, the higher quality assets, that I'm comfortable holding underwater, because the SEI, I'm not comfortable holding that underwater. Illuvium, I'm not really comfortable holding that underwater anyway with that last piece of position that I added to. Because I did add, through here, and the way that I trade accumulation strategies is, if this had a consolidation through here, I probably would have added it as well. But I didn't really get the opportunity to, because it just went straight up. So the next opportunity I had to add to this was a breakout, which I thought we got here. I just got a little bit too hot on the breakout, thinking there was going to continue on higher, and then had a 20% pull back into a 20% pump. So yeah, that can be some of the issues trading sometimes. Sometimes you just get unlucky, but realistically, I should have waited until we got a more solid close above here to add, because this is obviously still in the SOS, hasn't broken out of that just yet. Okay, LDO still looking pretty strong. Really strong day yesterday. Like, what an absolute mega pump. 20%. So yeah, LDO is pretty much back at the highs right now at the 0.618. So this looks like it wants to just flag here a little bit longer and then push all the way to 3.26. All right. After that, then it's off into it's off into price discovery, and that easily can end up running to 2.27 or 3.618, $8 or something like that. So those are the levels that I would be looking for once this does end up running into new highs and into price discovery. Theta is one I actually nailed the bottom on, so pretty happy with that. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get unlucky, but yeah, I just noticed the pin bar here, then SFP here, and then the rest of the market was bouncing quite nicely, and saw this running was lagging a little bit, so actually got into a position really low at about 86 cents. And that's obviously up quite nicely, and already had an amazing entry on Theta back here. I have taken profit on a little bit of that because this was such a really impressive run. But basically the main entry that I took here was, it had broken down, and then the rest of the market started to pick up and take off. And so as soon as we reclaimed these range lows through here, I just took a position here, stop loss below there. And then, it ran from, 70 odd percent, all the way up to here was obviously 100 and something, but took some profit through here. And then I raised 50% stop loss up to here, and also added on one of these dips. And the stop loss was a little bit too tight. It should have been probably a little bit lower. And actually, I got stopped out on this, so then re-entered shortly afterwards and got back in. So sometimes you just get a little bit unlucky, stopped out on my second add to this position. So then I just re-entered that through here. So yeah, still looking for the next rally up out of this flag. Right. And this is very similar type setup to INJ, in my opinion. So the main thing I'm watching for here is this to break out of this downtrend through here, something like that. Or, it's going to come down one more time and then go again. All right, let's have a quick look at Bitcoin at the moment. We only been in this really wide, it's almost like a 10% range that has been set out by this low here. The low is actually, from the initial throwback through here. The low is actually set by the 2021 value area low from our yearly VWAP, right? So this is the indicator that we have created based off Merritt Black's long-term VWAP strategy. He's an ex-Wall Street trader. And yeah, he's got some pretty cool strategies and ideas based around, using VWAPs, and, we coded it up using the aggregated, to aggregate all the exchange data together to get the right levels, because otherwise the levels all over the place. And you see the accuracy of the levels from using the aggregated system, right? So there are a lot of VWAP indicators out there, but they're not aggregated. And so the trick is to get the right levels is to use an aggregated system. And you can see here the accuracy of these levels and how good they are to trade off, especially the high time frame ones like the yearly, right? So yeah, the 2021 value area low, which is basically from this VWAP in 2021, and then you have the value area low, the midpoint, and the value area high, which is all the way up at 55K. And so basically we've, this range has been set out, and that is the low, the value area low through there. And the high was set out by basically the original breakout rally that we got when we finally got into this range. And then the Ethereum ETF was registered by BlackRock, applied for by BlackRock, and then we had a massive throwback, and there started a bit of a rotation to Ethereum, right? So what we're seeing here now is this range continues to hold. And every time we're below the 2021 value area low, there's a lot of buying, right? We see that presented here, also here. And then when we came back to it the other day with our throwback, and a lot of buying. And every time we do see that kick in, we get a lot of spot. Spot comes back into it as well, right? So this is basically what we saw here. After we had the low get put in, we saw a lot of spot buying, and you can see here when we come into the low up here at this, but I can't zoom in. Apologies for that, but hopefully you can understand what's going on here. The green bars on here are showing spot buyers, and that's market buyers. And as soon as we came into this low, you can see the Binance spot buyers really kicked in quite heavily, where Coinbase was actually selling through there, and that ended up putting in a bottom. right? And we can also see through the blue line through here is the spot CVD. So that shows us when people are market buying or market selling, and it gives us a blue line, right? And then the perps one is the red or pinkish line. And that is when people are selling perpetual futures, market buying and market selling, right? And we can see that when the market is led by spot, it's actually quite healthy and continues to trend higher. As soon as spot started selling, when we hit the high here at around 37.9, spot started selling off aggressively. There was a very big spot seller on Binance. And yeah, spot has been much, much lower performing versus perp. So it's a lot of market selling on spot. We got up to a local high here pretty much all day. So now what I'm looking for in the London session and New York session, is this going to start to curl back around and start to pick back up and outpace the perp market buys? And, we'll start to see on Binance or Coinbase through here, we'll start to see those TWAPers start to kick back in. TWAP is basically just a system where you buy over time. In small increments instead of just going one big order at one time, because the really big players, they have to buy like that, right? They can't just put like a couple $100 million of Bitcoin market buy instantly, right? So they're TWAPing over time, buying, and that pushes the price up. So we will see if they start to show their face again in the London and New York sessions, or if the sellers are going to stay strong, which will eventually drag us down and make us roll back over. And if we do roll back over one more time, I'll be looking down here at this basically 35.7 level, 35.6, which is the 2021 value area low, right? One of the main things I'm looking for here at the moment is a potential bounce off the quarterly developing VWAP value area. All right, and that lines up perfectly with 0.618. So if we do have another pullback here, maybe it does something like this over the next couple of days, and then we end up rallying off that, that would be really strong. I don't think, this has already had 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the fourth touch of this area up here. And it's actually a weekly order block. I'll show you that up here. Right, this is our weekly order block that is holding price down. Right, so if we go back down to our lower time frames, we can see every single time we get up into this area, there's a lot of selling kicks in, right? And so we've tagged the bottom of this order block 4 times now. I think if we come back, we have one more pullback, or, this could end up playing as like, a bit of a cup and handle pattern and going like this and pushing through finally, right? The next time we come up and challenge is 37,800 level. I just don't think it's going to hold. Like, every time you tap on a level like this, it starts to eat into the limit orders that are sitting there, that are big sell limit orders, and it starts to eat away at them, and eventually you break through that. So that's what I'm looking for here at the moment. I think that's the main play, and a push higher up to 40K plus. We just have to see how it plays out. This easily could end up, chopping around here a bit more and pulling all the way back to 30,000. So sorry, I should say 34,000. I was going to say 30,400, but yeah, it could easily pull back all the way to 34,000, right, which is a nice daily level through here, and basically the beginning of our the start of this potential flag pattern that's happening at the moment. So yeah, it's a tough one. Basically, at the moment, I'm looking to buy every time we come back down to this 35,700 level. I'll be a buyer again if we come down to 34, and I think we'll probably bounce quite strongly there. But I am aware that the market is really strong, and it might not give another really easy entry for a while. It could just continue to flag out quite high and then push again. And then if we break through, the next main target is a 2021 VWAP at 45. And then there is that large consolidation level, which I think is probably going to be the high, the pre-halving high. I'm not sure if price will get above that before the halving or not, but who knows what could happen in January. Most people are picking now that the ETF will be approved before January 10, because that is when the ARK Invest, Kathy Woods, last final date is. So the SEC may have to approve before then. So it's going to be pretty spicy. That's not very far away. It's like 5-6 weeks away, right? So anything can happen when the ETF finally gets approved. We might get a really big pump. We might have a sell the news event. I'm not too sure. Really, in my opinion, if we are going to have a sell and use event for the ETF, it's probably going to be a big run up before it gets approved, or it might get approved. We have a pump, a little bit of a pullback, and then everyone knows that the date that it's going to get listed and approved. We might have a big run up into that, and then finally it gets listed, it goes live, and then you have a big pullback, right? And that pullback could be like a 1 to 3 month pullback. And then, you start to have a little bit more excitement kick in because you've got the halving right around the corner. So it's going to be a very interesting next couple of months. Usually the summer months in Australia or the winter months in the US is when the main trading is done. There can be a lot of activity in, November. Obviously, we already had a fair bit, but October is one of the best months for crypto for sure. But December, January, February, March, and April are usually some of the main parts of the year when you get the major moves. And then the US summer is a lot more sideways, a lot quieter. That's why everyone says selling may go away, right? Which I'm definitely going to be doing next year because it can get very boring, very choppy, very sideways during that mid-year period, which is what we saw in this year, right? This sideways and slightly pullback consolidation. If you go and have a look at the chart, many over all the years, most of the middle of the year periods look similar to this, okay? So we could end up chopping sideways for a little bit longer. I wouldn't be surprised if we do end up pushing. One of the main things to look at that I wanted to talk about as well is the total market cap chart, right? So total market cap looking pretty nice here, to be honest. This just looks like a wick off accumulation pattern. And that is sort of telling me that the big players are really present in the market right now. And, we all know that they're here buying up Bitcoin for their spot ETFs because they have to have it. I don't think they're going to wait until the spot ETFs get approved before they start buying the Bitcoin that they're going to be selling to their customers. They would have been accumulating all through here around 15, 16K, all through here. And that's probably why it's taken so long for us to break out above 1.2 trill, right? But this just looks like a sign of strength, and it looks like it's gearing up to head up to 1.65 soon. And that you've just seen this pattern play out so many times. You break above the range high, you go into a really tight consolidation. People get chopped out in that consolidation. Oh, it's a top. This is not what a top looks like. Top looks like a big blow off, like something like that looks like a top. This is like a nice top, right? Bit of a top action here and here, much faster pullbacks than this. Obviously, though, if we come back below the range high level, which is 1.25, then yes, things can get a little bit more dicey, and I would be a bit more concerned, right? So let's just say it sells off tomorrow and goes like this. That could be a nice short entry looking for down here. But, I just think that's a little bit less likely, to be honest. And more likely this is going to chop sideways for a bit longer. Nice flag pattern, reaccumulation before it pushes higher. And that will coincide nicely with Bitcoin moving up to 40, 45K and those altcoins having a nice run. We are really on the cusp of breaking out, especially with Ethereum as well. Let's have a quick look there. Probably got a little bit higher time frame, but yeah, we're just in the consolidation as well here. But if Ethereum can finally get out of this level, 2150, I think it can run to 25 pretty quickly. So that's one major thing I'm looking for. And if that does happen, it's going to drag total 2 up, and total 3 is going to finally get out of its accumulation as well. And then things can get a little bit crazy. We might have a little bit of an alt season if that type of action eventually happens. But have to keep our eyes on BTC because when the spot ETFs get approved, this could start to run aggressively and leave altcoins behind for a little bit, and then altcoins end up catching up a little bit later. So, could end up doing something like this and then pull back one more time. That type of action as we move higher. But so far, every time Bitcoin's moving, all the top altcoins are running with it, Solana and Link. And I'll continue to watch for that type of action because I think that's positive for the market in general as a whole. And there's less of that rotation going on at the moment where oh, Bitcoin runs by itself, and then you have the rotation into ETH, and you have the rotation into, the lower tier altcoins. It seems to be a little bit different. Like ETH is getting left behind at the moment. Bitcoin is strong with the other top coins like Solana and Link. And then, you have like the lower tier starting to run a couple of weeks later pretty strongly as well, right? So that rotation system, as we get a bit more advanced, might not stay as true. And that seems to be proving correct at the moment. GBTC is a really interesting one at the moment, obviously pushing quite aggressively. Like this is almost up to, the level that 48K was, for example. It's basically like 45 at the moment, but still at a discount to native asset value. That's for sure. Nice 4-5% push. They did have a whole heap of new meetings with the SEC and everything like that they announced last night. And that's starting to look a lot closer to being approved soon as well, which is obviously they're going to transfer GBTC into, the Grayscale Bitcoin ETF instead of being a trust. Okay, so those are the main things that I'm looking at the moment, guys. Hopefully that helps. In terms of the NASDAQ, this is either just going to continue to push and we run to a new all-time high, or there is potential for it to have a slight pullback over the next few days into this area here. And I think if we do come back down to say 15,300, we'll get a nice bounce off that for the next rally. Obviously, we nailed the bottom back here a couple of weeks ago and putting this TD9 below the range and then reclaimed that. And it's just been a really strong rally ever since. And my stock portfolios have been absolutely loving it. But it does look like it's gearing up for some sort of a push to attempt a new all-time high and have that Santa Claus rally. So it would make sense to me for that to happen over the next few weeks, heading into Christmas. So yeah, and Nvidia had some amazing earnings yesterday, but it has pulled back a little bit as well. So you need to keep an eye on some of the top coins, top stocks and stuff like that, because that will affect the NASDAQ. They're not really that correlated at the moment to crypto anyway, so I'm not really going to focus that much attention on or effort. But there are a few things that are pushing very close to their all-time highs. Like gold is very close to pushing again, having attempted an all-time high. Stocks are very close to pushing and attempting a new all-time high. This is not the sort of stuff that you have happening when you're in a recession or have a recession coming up. And I think, at this point, with everything that's going on, need to sort of think about one of the great men in the industry. I know a lot of people don't like BlackRock, but he's definitely one of the best investors on the planet at the moment because he's managing about 10 trillion in assets. And that's Larry Fink, the founder and head of BlackRock. And he also created the AI that basically everybody uses, which is called Aladdin. Everybody in the finance industry that analyzes stocks and everything like that, all the fundamentals and price analysis as well. It's extremely impressive. And he was onto it very, very early. But basically what he said was, you can't have a recession. There's not going to, his direct quote was along the lines of, there's not going to be a recession in 2024 because government spending is way too high. And you cannot have a recession when government spending is this high. And I'll show you a little chart. This is the reverse repo. So the overnight reverse repo repurchasing program. And I've talked about this in previous videos, a couple of us in Discord, we're discussing this, way back here because Arthur Hayes wrote a whole heap of articles and everything like that around it. But, if you watch like the business channels and stuff like that, they do reference this a little bit. And basically it's an account that banks hold capital at the Federal Reserve. Basically what they've been doing is they've been transferring money out of the reverse repo, right? And transferring it to the Treasury General account. And the Treasury General account is just the Treasury account, the general Treasury account for the government. And then they take money out of that and they use it to fund the government for all the spending programs. And basically it's down over $1.2 trillion, $1.3 trillion pretty much in the last, let's see how long that is, in the last 227 days. So all that money, that $1.2 trillion has been getting injected into the economy through government spending programs. So that's why Larry Fink is saying you can't have a recession with this much government spending going on. So if there is going to be if there is going to be a recession, next year, and this is why everybody's talking about like 10K and all these big pullbacks and everything like that. And to me, it's just ridiculous. And Larry obviously agrees. And he said, if that is going to happen, there's going to be a recession. The government spending is going to have to stop. And I can't see the government spending stopping moving into an election year, because Joe Biden and the Democrat Party are definitely not going to have everything fall apart just as everybody's getting ready to go vote for him or Donald Trump, who's going to be the next president, right? They're going to want people, they want to want inflation low so they can claim Bidenomics and everything like that has worked. And inflation's been beaten, and the economy is pumping, everybody's got a job, everybody's feeling good, stock market is going well, stock market's high, the price of your petrol isn't high, and they're going to claim that they've saved the economy, right? And that's not going to happen if they stop their spending, because it's literally holding the whole entire economy together, right? So I don't see us having a recession next year. I think, we're getting much closer to the soft landing coming true, and maybe the Fed has eventually nailed it and they've managed to navigate everything that happened with the Russia-Ukraine war, and also got their way out of COVID while also managing to get interest rates quite high. So, they've sort of managed to balance the economy, and, they brought inflation back, because that was the major problem. You got to remember, the major problem was that they couldn't create inflation. And even Obama said when he was handing over to Trump that Donald Trump's not going to be able to get, above 2% growth. Those times are gone and it'll never come back, blah, blah, blah. What's he going to do? Just thinks he can just wave a magic wand, and all you had to do was cut taxes and incentivize business growth, and it came back. And then obviously they pumped ridiculous amounts of money during COVID. But the major problem, the biggest issue that we did have in the economy was actually deflation, right? And they had that hanging over for a long, long time. And if you want to get real conspiracy theory or anything like that, potentially, COVID and everything like that happened, and I don't want to get too crazy, but potentially the elites organized it so that they could get the financial system back into balance, because we spent about 12 years where the financial system was very out of balance, and they pumped all that capital in, possibly to create all that inflation deliberately, so they actually could raise interest rates and get them back to a normal level in balance, because they couldn't get interest rates off zero, right? So it's just something to think about anyway, guys. You guys just want to know if chart's going to go up or down, but I like to challenge, myself and you guys as well to, think outside the box a little bit, and not just always follow the mainstream message on social media, or what the media is saying and stuff like that, which is, inflation bad, ruined everyone's life. Yes, it is bad, but what's worse? Deflation is way worse, and not having an economy that's balanced. So not having financial markets, they're out of balance for over a decade. That's not a good situation either, right? So I believe we've got a lot of inflation over the last few years, but we haven't had much inflation for a long time before that, about 10 years, right? It was very low for a long time anyway. So we got basically 10 years of inflation in 2 years. That's why it's hit everyone so hard. And now, things are sort of back in balance with interest rates up a little bit higher again. And, it sort of brings back balance to the economy. But anyway, that's enough ranting about that. This chart is really important to look at as well. And, the rounding and start to see a little bit of a rally here on the ECB injecting capital back in. We also see down here in our bar chart that China is injecting a lot of capital into their economy as well, because it's obviously falling apart in a massive way, especially the real estate sector. So they're doing massive amounts of stimulus as well. I can't see that slowing down anytime soon. The US, obviously, since Bitcoin was at about 25, 26K, have been injecting capital again back into the markets, right? And, it looks like we've been going sideways now pretty much since June last year, so a year and a half of sideways, but it looks like it's curling around and getting ready to start heading up. Global liquidity also heading up, but the main one is the ECB potentially has bottomed, because their inflation is starting to come down right now. And if the ECB starts to inject capital again, and so does the US, while China's injecting capital as well, that adds a massive amount of fuel to the fire for Bitcoin to go higher. Because it just look at this chart, right? Liquidity injected, Bitcoin runs a few 100%. When they flick to QT, start draining liquidity out of the markets, and what happens? Bitcoin goes into a bear market. Okay, so if this starts to take off again, it's pretty much locked in that Bitcoin will follow the liquidity flows. So that's it for today, guys. Hopefully you learned something, and thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you all in the next episode. Please give us a like and subscribe, or join us on our Facebook group at Crypto Paradox. In Facebook, Discord is discord.gg/Bitcoin. Come in and say hi, ask some questions, or have a chat to the rest of the crew. Really awesome community in there at the moment in the Discord group. There's some great traders, a lot of traders in here, better than me these days. So come in, say hi, have a chat to the crew, and we'll see you all in there. Cheers.